And welcome to the November 14th, 2017 regular school board meeting of the Roswell Independent School District. And hello everybody out there in TV land. I hope you're tuned in and watching. I have Mr. Sanchez on the phone, so we actually have a fourth board member here also. He's calling in tonight. He's away at a meeting, correct, sir?
Yeah, I'm in Santa Fe.
He's in Santa Fe. Do us well. Okay, we'll start with opening ceremonies. Roll call.
Mr. Edwards? Mr. Getty?
Here.
Dr. Pittman?
Here.
Mr. Sanchez?
Here.
Miss Kirk?
Yes. Okay, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance from Washington Avenue Elementary. I was going to say Shane.
Ms. Arnold.
Ms. Arnold.
Thank you, Madam President, Superintendent Sanchez, and members of the board. It is my pleasure to have my student council here today. Most of them are with me tonight representing, and one of my lead teachers, Mrs. Fuller, she's going to introduce our student council that will lead us in the pledge.
Thank you all so much for having us tonight. I'm going to do you guys quickly by first names. Please listen, and then we're going to stand across the front. All right, Alasia, Zoe, Niobe, come on, ladies. Adriana, Danica, Ashley, Miss Amber, Grace, Miss Andrea, Henna, our president, Mr. Andrew, Mr. Stephen. Stephen, can you start a row in front, sir? Jose, A.B., Sierra, Hannah, Charity, come on, children, Marcus, come on, Isaac, Jamin, Anaí, and Miss Kaylee. Thank you all so much for having us.
Absolutely.
All right, salute. Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the sea symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
Awesome.
Good job.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you
We
all very much.
appreciate it. And you know what? It's so much fun to see kids.
Congratulations.
It's so much fun.
Good job. Awesome.
Good job.
Awesome.
Good job.
Awesome. Thank you.
Good job.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great to see you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. Awesome.
Thank you. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for coming
Thank
tonight.
you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good
Thank
job.
you. And
Good
thank
job.
you so much.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Arnold.
Thank you. Thank you guys.
And if you would remain standing, Mr. Tackett. Mr. Tackett. A moment of appreciation.
Do we have any veterans in the audience? If you're a veteran, would you please come up for the front?
Mr. Cole,
Come on.
come on.
You're not alone.
And Mr. Sanchez is a veteran also.
Thank you, guys.
Last week, our district honored veterans, and was fortunate to attend a couple of those assemblies. Very touching. The stories that were shared and told. You know, we pray, we have moments of appreciation for our students, our teachers, their heroes, our administrators are heroes. But the reason we can do these things is because of folks like these men up here tonight. They are truly the heroes. They sacrifice, their family sacrifices. They provide us with the freedoms that we so often take for granted. And in honor of our veterans, I'd like to pause for a moment of silent appreciation for each of them. Would you join me, please? Amen. Thank you. Kat.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Tackett, and thank you to our veterans. Okay, now I'd like to offer the adoption of the agenda with flexibility. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Mr. Getty made the motion.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez, and we have a second by Mr. Sanchez. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We adopt the agenda with flexibility. Thank you. We will now have inquiries or comments from the general comments. Ms. Kane, has anybody signed up to speak? Yes, ma'am. Great. Okay. Members of the public are reminded that matters of concern may be referred to another source for disposition and will probably be deferred to a subsequent meeting. It is unusually not in the best interest of the district or the board or the public to enter in discussion or take action without proper research and study. Speakers are requested to limit their comments to 3 minutes and must be signed in with the executive assistant to the superintendent prior to the opening of the meeting, unless you are on the agenda. Comments will be timed with the warning given 30 seconds left. Any matters regarding specific district personnel or students may not be discussed in public. Citizens may have matters of interest brought before the Board of Education or action for discussion through the regular prepared agenda by filling a written request with their district board member at least 1 week in advance of the meeting in accordance with our ISD board policy. 2 board members may then request the item be placed on the agenda. Copies of the board policy 1500 and 1630 are available upon request in the superintendent's office. All persons in attendance or making public comment at board shall conduct themselves in a dignified, respectful manner, exhibiting proper social decorum. Confine their comments to matters germane to the business of the district. Avoid references, statements, or conduct reasonably likely to insult or disrupt or undue delay order of transaction of business scheduled for the consideration of the board. Refrain from interfering with the function and duties of members of the board staff with the presentation of any speaker. Refrain from using language or statements which may be reasonably construed to be insulting or tend to violence or breach of peace, including profanity, obscenity, or other breach of respect. Refrain from cumulative, redundant, repetitive remarks. Okay, may I have our first speaker?
Mr. Polito and Mr. Rodriguez.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You two have approached the board before. Do they look familiar, Mr. Getty?
I've never seen them before.
Hi, guys. Would you like to start?
Sure.
Hi, my name is Kevin Pulido.
And I am Adrian Rodriguez Ramirez.
We're sophomores from Roswell High School with Roswell Independent School District. We are here today as members of Involvement, which is a youth-led movement working to decrease the harmful and addictive use of tobacco. One of the campaigns we're working on this year is the 24/7 campaign. The 24/7 campaign is helping New Mexico schools district adopt, implement, and enforce truly comprehensive tobacco-free school policies. Under a truly comprehensive policy, tobacco, e-cigarettes, and dip are not a good use of possession, and distribution is prohibited. by anyone, anywhere, at any time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
We spoke to you, the Roswell School Board, last year. And this year invited us back to partner with us to update your policy. We are so proud that when this policy is updated, Roswell will be one of the first districts of all New Mexico to update its policy to be 100% tobacco free. Thank you for the commitment you have to keeping the students, staff, and visitors healthy to Roswell's school publics and school sponsors to take these healthy. Thank you for hearing our voices and partnering with us through the 24/7 campaign to make this happen. We encourage you to say yes tonight to approve the first reading of this policy.
As a reminder, once you decide to adopt these policies, clearly making our schools 100% comprehensively tobacco-free, we have great ways to show our support.
First, we will provide free tobacco-free signs to all schools in your district.
Second, our free tobacco-free toolkit will be sent to all schools in your district.
Third, we will add to your official map of 100% comprehensive district on handouts and website.
On behalf of involvement and the 24/7 campaign, we thank you for partnering with us.
And making Roswell one of the healthiest, most tobacco-free districts in the state.
Thank you.
Awesome, gentlemen, thank you. Ms. Kane?
Hope Morales.
Good evening, Superintendent Sanchez, President Kirk, members of the board. Oftentimes, whenever we have educational events or conversations, that normally happens in Albuquerque or Santa Fe. So whenever I started with Teach Plus, I wanted to make sure a lot of that conversation and the opportunities were also happening in southern New Mexico. So I'm here tonight to tell you about an event Teach Plus will be having in Roswell in December. It is on December 8th. We are inviting a variety of legislators, superintendents, school board members, and educators to this event. I was able to speak with you at the beginning of the school year to talk to you about our 4 policy ideas. So at this meeting, we'll update you a little bit about Teach Plus in our organization, but also continuing on our work. So we are going to talk about the responsible expansion of high-quality pre-K to students in need of it most, retaining champion teachers through compensation, high-quality professional development for all teachers, and developing high-quality teachers. So I will share this flyer with you. Please RSVP to me, but we are hoping to have your representation there, and we love that we're able to do this in Roswell. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Kane? Thank you. Thank you all so much. Now we'll have approval of the minutes. Ms. Sanchez?
I recommend approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of October 10th, 2017.
Are there any, board members, are there any corrections, deletions to the minutes? Having heard none, I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Dr. Pittman made the motion.
Second?
And Mr. Getty made a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. Minutes stand as written. Thank you. We'll now move on to the action items. Action items. Number 1, RHS Charlie's Angels Dance Team request to the National Dance Competition in Orlando, Florida on March 1st through the 5th, 2018. Ms. Sanchez.
Coach Castro?
Ms. Sanchez and members of the board, thank you for having me here tonight. Did you have any questions?
You want to just tell us a little bit about the trip? And
Yes, we went on this trip year before last, as you know, and we would have been really happy last year to go and defend our title. We weren't able to, but I'm really excited about this year. I think it's a great opportunity for kids, not just in our sport, but other sports as well. As you know, our sport is a little different than most sports. We don't have games. We rely on these competitions to better our team, better our program, and to prepare us for state. And I just feel like, being my 18th year, I feel like these kids have pushed themselves to the next level where they're very capable of competing at this level. So basically, we're just here asking today, not for any monetary assistance or anything like that, but just permission for a successful trip and to be able to take these girls and let them experience a chance of a lifetime. You know, a lot of them have experienced it, but I have new kids who have not and are working very hard, you know, irregardless of what's in front of us. We're working very hard every day. So that's what we're here for today, and hoping, and I'm really happy, and I want to thank you, Ms. Sanchez, and the board for hearing us. You know, I felt last year like our voices could not be heard with the people that were in at that time, and I'm just very thankful that you guys at least have allowed us the opportunity to be here and to speak to you and to hear our position and what we're wanting to do.
Thank you, Coach Castro.
Thank you.
With that, Madam President, members of the board, I recommend approval of the Roswell High School Charlie's Angels dance team trip request to the National Dance Competition in Orlando, Florida, March 1st through 5th of 2018.
Thank you, Ms. Sanchez. May I have a motion to approve the RHS Charlie's Angels dance team request?
So moved.
Mr.
Second.
Getty?
I'll second.
And Mr. Edwards, second.
I have some questions,
Are
Madam
we going to
President.
have some comments available?
Absolutely. All
Does
comments.
Mr. Sanchez want to go first?
Ms.
Yeah. So first and foremost, I just wanted to, state how proud I am of the girls and everything they do and everything that Coach Castro has done for these girls over the past few years. It's phenomenal, and it's just it's very moving to see what these girls can do over the past 9 to 10 years, bringing back these titles back to Roswell. One thing that has came up, guys, and we're going to reflect back on last month's policy that we enacted, and that was the 5300 policy, which is access to co-curricular and extracurricular activities. And one of the positive things out of this policy was that we allowed extended trips to be permitted for extracurricular activities outside or over 300 land miles from Roswell, which I think is a good thing. You know, I think we need to allow our kids to get out and, experience a little bit of the country. One of the things that's in that policy, though, and one of the things that I didn't see with the application, and this is, some questions are going to come across here, is in that policy, it stated that a formal written request for such special trip or event made in writing to the Director of Activities and Athletics no later than 3 months in advance. And I believe this may be considered a request. And then going further down, it actually states that name, date, and location of event, sanctioned bodies also has to be applied for, the names of students participating. Also, what's required is a financial statement of the anticipated expenses for the special trip or event, detailing the necessary adjustments to the proposed budget submitted the previous June to the Director of Activities and Athletics per ISD Board 7350 in order to remain in compliance with the New Mexico Equities Act and Title IX. So, guys, where my concern is here is, well, let me start with the first question. Has a request been submitted to the Director or the Athletic Director before today?
I had talked to Mr. Hudson last week about that, but I was told that I needed to kind of wait till we got through this process right here. We're prepared with all of that, but I was just told that we needed to get through this process first.
Mr. Sanchez, did you hear that?
Kinda.
She was directed that board approval was the first step.
Board approval was the first step?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, because according to the policy, it seems that it needs to go through the Director of Athletics prior to this, and I think what the policy means by that is that so, one, he has time to look at that, and then two, ensure that the request is still in compliance with the New Mexico Equities Act and Title IX. before it comes to us for approval. So we get that information from athletics saying, you know, this is the request, and the request is either in compliance with or not with equities and Title IX, and then from there, then we can vote on it to send them. Reading that policy, guys, and if you want to, you can refer back to the last board meeting and go to that 5300 policy that we enacted on. That's what my concern is, guys, on this is reading the policy. It seems that that stuff has to happen first, so then when it comes to the board, then we're already prepared to answer that question or to vote based on the application, and probably based on the input of the athletic director on, are we okay? Is this good to go? Are we compliant with equities and Title IX? And from there, we can make a good educated vote.
Madam President, I'm sorry, Mr. Sanchez.
Guys, is that if we do vote on this tonight, per our policy that we enacted last month, we're going to be in direct violation of that policy.
Madam President, members of the board, Mr. Sanchez, if that was the guidance that was given from my athletic director, I apologize, but that was what was given as far as following the policy. So if we miscommunicated that, I would hate that we would be bringing it today not to be able to vote on it for miscommunication on our part. I believe that Coach Castro has all the information from the information that you're requesting on hand to be able to provide to Mr. Hudson first thing in the morning.
I have a question.
Okay, and then another question is if something does come up with athletics per the policy, is that going to be in conflict with our vote tonight?
We can vote next time. Let her get the paperwork done. Do you have a budget? Has that gone to Mr. Cole?
Has it gone?
Or whoever it goes
to. The only
to.
person that I was asked was by Mr. Hudson, and that was the end of last week. But I was in contact with Ms. Sanchez's office and was told to wait till it got through this process. Like, we're prepared with it.
Good.
But we're being told two different things. And I just feel like right now we're kind of running out of time because we have time limits for, I mean, we've been kind of working on this since back in into May, probably even before that. I mean, the thought and writing letters and so forth. So like Ms. Sanchez said, I think a lot of it's just miscommunication. I'm being told to do this and then no, do this or wait, you know. So it's not that we're not prepared. I'm just getting two different things from two different sides.
Ms. Castro, we apologize, honestly. Mr. Sanchez, so you feel like it needs to go through the athletic department first? Is that what you're...
Well, guys, and please don't take this the wrong way, because one, I don't want anybody to think that, you know, I'm against this, and that, you know, I want to send these girls wherever they need to go. If we could send them to Europe, I would be all about it. So one thing that I just want to make sure, guys, is that we are in compliance with our policy that we voted on this month, and that policy, reading that policy, you know, states that the request has to go through athletics first. And then that time frame, athletics looks at it and looks to make sure we have everything incorporated, which is, you know, the financial statements, names of the students, the name, the date, the location, the event, everything that's required under that policy. And then also they'll check the next to equities and then Title IX. So then let us know, guys, yes, we can do this. We're in compliance with Title IX and equities. We have everything we need. We would recommend that you approve this. The girls are good to go, and you know that's what I'm reading on the policy. And you guys can reflect back on that too if you want to. You can go back to last board meeting and look at that policy. That's where I'm not feeling comfortable. I think technically this coming to the board previous to being approved by the athletics department, I think we are in violation of the policy that we enacted last month.
Madam President, members of the board, Mr. Sanchez, we have a special board meeting on Friday. We could have the information and bring it as an action item on Friday.
Ms. Sanchez, to correct that, I think our agenda has been posted. Am I correct, Ms. Kane? And we cannot add to it once it's been posted. 72 hours.
So we missed it.
Yeah.
So guys, if it's okay, I know we've already had a motion, but I think we probably should have had inquiries before, but what I think we should do is table this until, you know, we get that reflection from from Mr. Hudson and his staff, stating that, yes, we're good, we got everything we need, and we're compliant with equities and Title IX. And then from there, then we can make that educated vote that we have everything we need to vote on this.
Well, then here's my suggestion, board members, is if Ms. Castro meets all those, we can go ahead and vote on it. And if she meets all those requirements, then it's a go. If not, we bring it back to the board and discuss what's missing. So we could go ahead and vote on it. So if all those are met, then she is to move forward. Does that make sense?
Yes, I agree.
Just
I have
one
another
thing.
question.
You can go. Go ahead.
Okay. Yes,
I have a question about the Title IX compliance, because I sure don't want to get us in trouble with that. Have we ever had Mr. Ortiz look at that for this kind of trip?
Yes,
We've been working on that for the last month and a half, 2 months.
Have we? Do we have a statement from him?
yes, that's our policy. That was what was adopted.
What-
Mr. Edwards and
What I wanted to say, and no disrespect to anybody, but that's why we weren't allowed to go last year. So we're kind of rehashing the same things. Like, I know not everybody is in support of this. Some of the people that I'm going to go forward with to ask, I already know what that answer is going to be because it was the answer last year. So, I mean, I'm not, no disrespect, but I feel like we're going through. I think when we first talked to you back in the summer, we had kind of thrown the numbers out there then. So it's not, I know it's something you have to have in writing and so forth. I get that, and we're prepared to do that. But I think, I know Mr. Hudson would kind of know what those numbers were based on what we did before, so it's, I don't know if we're just pushing it forward and then it'll come down to we're out of time and now it's too late, which.
Okay, I'm writing up the recommendation right now. So give me a second. Go ahead for discussion.
I want you to know that I'm a new school board member.
Yes, ma'am.
So I wasn't here when you came before.
Right.
I would like to see the statement by our attorney concerning this trip.
Madam President, members of the board, I can provide that
Thank you.
to all members of the board.
I'm glad. I want you to go. I do. But I want to make sure that we don't have repercussions down the line that's going to affect the monetary finances of this district. That's all.
I can, since we're all having our opinion, I would like us to vote on this tonight and let the district staff that we have in place deal with all of the policies that we're talking about. Because in the end, they're coming to us for approval. We're going to approve it. If it goes through everything, and they're going to fix what they need to fix with those entities. We don't need to worry about making sure. That's what they're here for. We have to trust them. And so I say we vote on it and let our district staff do what they're supposed to do.
Okay, here's my recommendation then. Having heard that, we have a motion on the floor. If Ms. Castro has met all requirements of School Board Policy 5300 and 7350 and has requests presented to Athletic Department, Mr. Hudson, then it will be a go.
So we need to vote on
And
that.
yes, and the most important thing is making sure that we're good under the New Mexico Equities and Title IX.
And that's 5300, 7350 is Title IX, yes.
That's correct.
Yeah, and that's stated in the policy that we enacted, that was one of the prerequisites.
Yep.
Absolutely. Okay,
Yep.
so are we okay with that, board members?
Well, we need to vote.
With my recommendation?
Yeah.
Okay,
We'll let
so
the
we've got
vote
a motion on the floor and a second by Mr. Edwards. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Ms. Castro, turn in the appropriate paperwork to Mr. Hudson and you're good to go.
I will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Good luck,
And
girls.
the room
Thank
clears.
you. I know. Mr. Sanchez, our room emptied.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, next.
Okay. Now we move on to, I adopted the agenda with flexibility, so I would ask to move number 19 to this position right before number 2. So we're moving number 19 to number 2, before number 2.
What is
Number 19 is Mr. Cole. He's on, I'm sorry, he's not on, but that action item is on page 18, page 15 of 18. Page 15,
RISD addenda pay schedule.
the increment pay schedule. Ms.
Okay.
Sanchez? Did you get that, Mr. Sanchez?
Say that one more time for me.
I'm moving number 19, the pay schedule, before number 2.
Okay.
Okay.
Madam President, members of the board, I would like Mr. Cole to do a presentation on the recommendation that you're going to be voting on an action item to give you some background information.
Thank you.
Mr. Cole?
Absolutely. So in looking at action item number 19 that has now been moved, RISD addenda increment pay schedule, what you'll notice there on the last page of the increment schedule, this is the RISD's addenda pay schedule for things like coaching increments, etc. The last and final increment listed, it's 9,200 FY18, fiscal year 18 retention incentive, $500, and that will dovetail or tie right back into action items 18 and 17. And just to give you a little more background on what those are, and I've gotten out of order, bear with me for just a second. What those are, that is in the last couple of board meetings discussions, we've talked quite a bit about the need to retain our staff and provide incentives to do that. We've also talked about the health insurance increases, the rates to the employee as well as the district. That's increased the district's costs and the costs out of the pockets of our employees. We know that there was not money in budget for raises last year or for this year for that matter. And so this increment pay in exchange for commitment to return to work for the Roswell Independent School District next year would provide incentive for that. And so the way this incentive would work for REA is they would essentially sign the employee return to work increment, and that would need to be turned into our Human Resources Department by November 30th. Now, in looking at that from a technical perspective, of course, there's always concern over the anti-donation clause, all of those things. We have run this through legal counsel. I have visited with the Director of School Budget and Finance with the PED on our concept. And of course, we've worked hand in hand with our REA, NEA union members as well on this. So I think a collective effort. I think we've got a strong incentive. And again, this would provide $500 as of December 10th payroll. It'd be a separate check to the employee issued on December 10th with the applicable taxes and benefits taken out, of course. So when I look at that and I look at all the employees across the district that would receive this, after taxes and benefits on the high end, I believe it was 403. On the lower end, I believe it was like 394. So it's a pretty good bump and incentive for them. We have proposed this to both REA, NEA, and our CWA group, which is our maintenance, custodian, security group. Now, I'll tell you, we didn't realize that CWA had an election going on this week. I think it was this week. Yeah, this week. So we have approached CWA, but they've got a few other irons in the fire. and they said we're not quite interested just yet, and we've got an election, so we're really not going to dive in with this just yet. And we did suggest to them that we would like to take this to our school board for authorization, just in case they decide to come on board with this same type of agreement, an MOU statement. So you'll see that there are two different action items, one for REA and one for CWA. That's the reasoning. And I'll just tell you that the timing is, again, the reason we wanted to bring CWAs to you now is because we get another couple of weeks down the road and we're not going to have enough time to issue those separate checks as of December 10th. So we want to give everybody an opportunity district-wide, including CWA, if they'll come to the table with this.
Thank you. Madam President, members of the board, just for clarity, that this will be all employees that would receive this retention incentive if approved by the board in the amount of $500 pending the taxes that Mr. Cole just talked about.
Is there any discussion?
I'm excited.
Yeah, this is really good. Thank you guys for doing the work to figure out how to do this.
Thank you. I know.
So I've got a question, guys.
Yes.
Is Mr. Cole still available?
Yes, sir.
And he might have hit on this too, and I might not have heard it. But anyway, one, guys, thank you for doing this. This is great that we're looking at getting this to our teachers. I just had one question on the $500, Mr. Cole. Was there a reason for the $500? Is there? And the second question is there an option to maybe raise this in the future, or is that kind of our guideline based on the total cost and our?
Yes, sir. It's a great question, and I appreciate the question. So $500 was not a random number. It was, we essentially looked at what those additional healthcare benefits were costing our folks across the district. On the high end, on a high-end plan, the highest medical insurance plan that you could get through the district's benefit coverage, the additional cost or cost increase to our employees on the employees side, not including the district's added cost, on the high end, again, was right around $300. I believe it was $290 for additional cost to them. So in looking at that compared to what a $500 increment and the taxes that would come out of that would look like to those folks, it gave them a little bit extra. It wasn't below that, so they kind of recouped their cost on their health insurance side. But just as importantly, we looked at the total cost of what it would cost us to provide this, and I can tell you that it's $684,621.13, and that's coming out of the operational fund, the foods, or the Title I fund, IDEA B entitlement fund, preschool fund, Title II fund, Medicaid fund, New Mexico Pre-K Initiative Fund, and Early Intervention CYFD Fund. So all those funds are impacted. And again, as we talked about at our last board meeting, when we discussed running budget deficits of $2 million last year and a projected budget deficit of $1 million this year. And looking across not only the operational fund where those deficits occurred last year, but to look at the other funds that it would impact, those federal funds. Those are budgeted pretty tightly. They're essentially the first thing that comes off the top are the salaries and benefits costs, and then you budget out for supplies, materials, transportation, all of that. So essentially all that's accounted for. There's very, very little margin to make increases, but we've found a way by targeting this particular increase at that particular amount.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
It did, and thank you for doing all the work on that. And, one thing I'd always strive for, guys, is give as much as we can. So if we can do this again, if we can bump that number up, based on budget, let's look at doing that.
And I think, if I could just answer that.
I would like to add it to above the line to their pay increment.
Absolutely.
Not as an increment, but to their pay
Right.
salary schedule. But if I might add also, when looking at this, we have employees that are at the, us baby boomers that are closer to retirement that have 20 years in, and they get a longevity check right before Christmas. and that's amount of about $600 before benefits. So that with the 500 check, so they could be actually taking home about $1,000 right before Christmas, which would help immensely.
Good.
Yeah,
Mr. Cole,
That'd
you
be
going to
great.
say something?
I forgot what it was.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, it's good.
It's all right.
Dr. Pittman?
I was going to say, I agree with Ms. Kirk in that this is great. And I know people will appreciate it. Even better is if we can add a percentage to their salary. I can't see, now I may be really wrong, in my lifetime I've never seen costs of healthcare go down. They always go up. So it's, after several years have passed, people are really paying a lot percentage-wise of their salaries. So I think that Ms. Kirk is right. We need to, I know we can't do it now, but planning ahead, we will want to see that we can give a raise at least to cover the cost of health care.
And that's
Increases in health care, yes.
That's exactly where I was going. I'm sorry. So the recurring cost versus a one-time cost. This is a one-time, non-recurring cost to the district, and again, a team effort, not only by district administration, but by REA, NEA, our bargaining groups, to bring this to the table. And I really appreciate the one-time cost component of it this year. Again, if we weren't in deficit last year by $2 million and projected to go in deficit again by $1 million this year, threatening our bond rating and other things, I would say absolutely, let's go for a percentage increase. But even our collective bargaining partners understood that, and I thank them for supporting us on that this year, and we will not forget that next year. Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, Madam President, members of the board, I recommend approval of the RISD addenda increment pay schedule.
So moved.
And we've had our discussion. I don't think there's any further discussion. Mr. Sanchez, anything else?
I second that, so moved, whoever did that.
Okay, so Dr. Pittman made the recommendation, and you're second, correct?
You got it.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. The ayes have it. The addenda increment pay schedule was approved. Okay, now we'll go back to number two, UHS robotics rookie grant application. Ms. Sanchez.
Good afternoon, Ms. Kirk.
Hi.
Good evening. Rest of the board, I'm here on behalf of UHS with my principal who likes to stand next to me just to make me look shorter. And I will admit we have already applied for the robotics grant as we were made aware of it a few days before it was due, and that was just last week. And so we have applied for a robotics rookie grant. It is for $6,000, $4,000 for the first year, $2,000 for the second, which would pay entry fees into FIRST Robotics, which encourages science and technology in schools, but also promotes building community, as a lot of these students are required to work with students from other schools, give away a lot of their materials to help other schools, as well as work with different community members just as community service. And so we are looking into that. We have some mentors out of Alamogordo, former mechanical engineer and electrical engineer, that are kind of helping to guide us in this, and they just made us aware of this grant a few days before it was due.
Thank you. With that, Madam President, members of the board, I recommend approval of the UHS robotics rookie grant application.
Is there any discussion, board members? I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Getty made the motion,
I second it.
and Mr. Sanchez second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The ayes have it. The UHS robotics rookie grant application is approved.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
May I say something?
Absolutely.
You know, you did extra work to get this. Your kids will be they'll be the benefit. They will get the benefit from the work you did. And this school board appreciates it.
Thank you. Well, it's brand new. I don't know what we're doing, but we're going to try.
Thank
You'll figure it out.
Absolutely.
Your students will figure it out.
They'll figure it
They'll
out.
help you.
That's exactly right.
That's right.
Thank you.
Very cool. Thank you.
Okay, so we're moving on to number 3. Might as well
Is that
stay
you
up
guys
here.
too, huh?
UHS Community Garden Grant Application.
So this one we have not applied for yet. This is in lieu of home.
I'm sorry, just a second, Ms. Sanchez?
Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, so I recommend approval of the UHS community grant application. No, Ms. Batista.
So the community garden grant application is from Home Depot up to $5,000. It's to promote and encourage community gardens that would give out back to the society. We're looking into this. A lot of our students have been very interested in starting a garden since it applies very much to the environmental and biological sciences that I teach at UHS. And the grant, I believe, or the application is due December 31st, so we still have plenty of time to do that. In addition, I have a few members from Home Depot themselves who have offered their assistance in providing building some of the things we might need for the community garden.
Fun.
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, oops, I kind of, what did I do? Yeah, I'll entertain a motion to approve the grant application for the community garden.
So moved.
Any discussion? Hearing none. So I will accept a motion. The motion was made by Dr. Pittman
Second?
and second by Mr. Getty. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Opposed, same sign. Congratulations. Your UHS community garden application is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on, bus contractors agreement, Ms. Sanchez.
I recommend approval of the bus contract agreement.
Is there any discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Getty made the motion,
Second.
and Mr. Sanchez second. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The bus contractor agreement is approved. Moving on to number 5, donations to Brenda Middle School Algebra 1 from Walmart. Ms. Sanchez?
I recommend approval of the donation to Bruno Middle School Algebra 1 for Walmart in the amount of $1,000 for graphic calculators. I'll stand for
I'm
any
sorry.
questions.
Any discussion? Okay.
Was
Having heard,
this for by personnel at the school?
Yes,
Or-
I applied for the donation through Walmart online.
Okay. And who is that?
Text, who?
I'm
Introduce
Tracy
yourself.
Edwards, I'm the Algebra 1 teacher.
did you hear
Tracy
that?
Edwards, Algebra 1 teacher. Brenda
Oh,
Middle
okay.
School.
Cool. That's awesome.
Any questions, Ms. Sanchez?
Nothing at all. Just wanted to see if we were the ones that did this. So thank you to, what was her name again?
Mrs. Edwards.
Mrs. Edwards. Sorry, I'm not there, but just thank you for putting forth the effort to get this for your kids. This is always a good thing to bring that money into the district. So thank you for taking extra time to get this done.
Thank you.
And it is, it's a lengthy process to write a grant.
It is. A teacher that does this all the time, and wow, you guys are motivated.
We need the money.
Absolutely, and it's a good way to go about it.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll entertain a motion.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Oh, second.
Okay, Mr. Sanchez made the motion and Mr. Getty second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. The ayes have, the motion carries for the donation of Brenda Middle School Algebra 1 from Walmart in the amount of $1,000. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Moving on to number 6, donation to RHS FFA from Dose Hall Veterinary Supply and Roswell Livestock and Farm Supply. That's a mouthful. Ms. Sanchez?
My turn now. I recommend approval of the donation to the Roswell High School FFA from Zodas Paul Veterinarian Supply and Roswell Livestock and Farm Supply in the amount of $1,384.28 for various activities.
Is there any discussion of the donation?
Anybody we need to recognize for doing this?
Yes, we have. Yes, Madam President, members of the board, we are recognizing, we have the letters here. When you get back to sign for us, we have the thank you letters ready to go.
Okay.
We've already signed them. Any discussion? Having heard none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Getty made the motion,
Second.
and Dr. Pittman seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The ayes have it. The motion carries for the donation of the RHS FFA from Zotis Paul Veterinary Supply and Roswell Livestock and Farm Supply in the amount of $1,384.28. I wonder what that 28 cents for the various activities. Thank you, thank you. Okay, moving on to number 7, donations to the RHS Wrestling from Blaze Nunez Memorial Fund. Ms. Sanchez.
I recommend approval of the donation to the Roswell High School Wrestling from Blaze Nunez Memorial Fund in the amount of $1,700 for the purchase of technology, wrestling equipment, and supplies to enhance the wrestling program. Members of the board, we have Coach Boggs here.
Please
Stand up
step
if you have to
forward,
say
absolutely,
hello.
and I understand you're a first-year coach?
Second year,
Second year.
all with RSD.
Second year
Yes, ma'am.
with RISD, applying for a grant for your wrestling team.
He's got a donation.
It's a donation.
They gave him money.
Sorry, donation. So you must have been busy out.
No, ma'am, this is, I just want to, on the record, to say thank you to them. They came and reached out to me as part of his memorial fund, and he did various sports, and they continually give back to the community. And so this was a very generous donation for us. So I'm very honored to be the recipient.
Awesome.
Very cool.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion, board members?
Well, I just wanted to say thank you for this. I don't know if anybody knows there, but Blaze was my cousin. And so this is very moving that we're still recognizing Blaze and, you know, what he did back at Roswell High. I remember he was a fireball back when he was wrestling. So one thing I'd probably ask guys is if maybe you can extend this out so that Blaze's parents understand that we did this, or that this was that came across the board to Bob and Judy Nunez. Bob, I believe, is still or was subbing for the district last year, and Judy is a teacher at East Grand Plains. So yeah, if we can get that out to them, it'd probably mean a lot to them. I don't know if they know that this is an honor of Blaze, so it'd mean a lot.
Are they the ones that
They're the ones
donated?
that are donating.
Yeah.
That's what I'm.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, is any other discussion? I'll entertain a motion. May I have a motion to approve the donation for the RHS Wrestling?
So moved.
It was made by Dr. Pittman and second by Mr. Sanchez. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Same sign. The ayes have it. The motion carries to approve the donation to RHS Wrestling from Blaze Nunez Memorial Fund in the amount of $1,700. Congratulations. Now, another donation to RHS Wrestling from Carla and Richard Chase. Ms. Sanchez?
Madam President, members of the board, I recommend approval of the donation to Roswell High School Wrestling from Carla and Richard Chase in the amount of $1,000 for t-shirts.
Is there any discussion from board members? Having heard none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the donation to RHS Wrestling from Carla and Richard Chase.
So moved.
The motion was made by Mr. Getty, second by
Second.
Dr. Pittman. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries to approve the donation to RHS Wrestling from Carla and Richard Chase in the amount of $1,000 for t-shirts. Congratulations.
Coach.
Thank you so much. Good luck. Okay, now we're moving on to item number 9, the RFP number 18-04, exclusive beverage provider.
Madam President, members of the board, I recommend approval of the RFP number 18-04, exclusive beverage provider.
I'm just a discussion from the board. I'm just a little amazed that we didn't get any competition. We just had the one bid.
You know, I think, Madam President, Superintendent, members of the board, I think we were all a little shocked by that. We did solicit both Coca-Cola and Pepsi here in our community. We reached out to them. We also advertised it publicly through the newspaper. But we were a little surprised as well, and I'm questioning that of some of the folks that we solicited. We came to understand that Coca-Cola is the only beverage provider at this time that services the routes in this area, and the other beverage providers said that they could not do that at this time. So with that was our recommendation.
And that saddens me because competition is healthy, but I understand. Discussion, board members? Okay, if there's no discussion, I'll entertain a motion to approve the RFP number 18-04, exclusive beverage provider.
So moved.
Mr. Getty made the motion.
Second.
And Dr. Pittman second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. The ayes have it. The RFP number 18-04, exclusive beverage provider is approved. Number 10, RFP number 1805, dual credit book purchase. Ms. Sanchez?
Excuse me. Madam President, members of the board, I recommend approval of RFP 18-05 for the dual credit book purchases.
Board members, any discussion? I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the purchase, or the RPF of 1805, number 18-05 dual credit book purchase.
So moved.
Mr. Getty made the motion, and Mr. Sanchez second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. The ayes have it. The motion carries. Policy 1640, evaluation of the superintendent, second reading. Ms. Sanchez?
I recommend approval of Board Policy 1640, evaluation of the superintendent.
Any discussion? I'll entertain a motion, having heard none.
So moved.
Mr. Getty made the motion.
Second.
And Dr. Pittman second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Policy 1640, evaluation of the superintendent, second reading is approved. Number 12, Policy 2110, superintendent schools, second reading.
Madam.
Ms. Sanchez, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Madam President, members of the board, I recommend approval of Board Policy 2110, the superintendent of schools.
Dr. Pittman, any discussion? Dr. Pittman, you had a question?
Yes, I do. I read this and I was a little confused here, knowing the law and the way we run things. Look at the section that says it begins, and the pages are different on this PDF than they might be somewhere else. The board expressly delegates to the superintendent the major responsibilities and duties, included but not limited to, and number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Look at 6, 7, and 8. They begin with the word recommends. When I see the word recommends, there's got to be somebody you recommend it to. And I'm wondering if that shouldn't be worded a little differently, like determines, or determines might be a good one for that. Because the superintendent is the one that makes those decisions, as I understand it. Am I correct on that?
Yes.
So the word recommend might not be the best one. It means give advice, not to make a decision.
Thank you.
You see what I mean?
I do, and when we looked at this, actually, we were looking at C, taking C out and moving it to the 1000 series, because it did not fit under the 2000 series. That was our recommendation at the time. The further discussion of the recommendation, the words recommends in 6, 7, and 8 wasn't even a discussion item at the time.
We're not changing any of that policy.
No.
What we're changing is C.
Moving it to 1,000.
So if we want to do that, we'll have to meet and do that outside of here. What we're discussing and only voting on is C.
C,
where is C? Help me. It's
Pretty much first page,
Yeah,
right
right
below
under-
superintendent of schools.
You have A, B, and then C. We're just moving.
Oh,
that.
okay, because I understand. You just took that out because we have a new policy about the evaluation. Am I
Correct.
right?
Yep.
Okay. I really just hate that word recommend because it really leads us to believe that it's not her decision.
Okay, so we'll make note of that, Mr. Byrd, and next time Mr. Getty and I meet for policy review, we'll take that under advisement.
I'm a great believer in cleaning things up when you see them because it can come back to haunt you.
Okay.
So just for clarity, Madam President, members of the board, this is a second reading. Are we just going to make those changes now, or are we going to bring it?
We'll have to
No, well,
re-meet
yes,
and go
yes.
over
You-
those.
Oh,
So
I
we're
think,
tabling the recommendation?
can't you just pass this
You-
one
you
and then
can
go
pass-
back and fix
then
it?
okay, it's
Yeah, we
just-
have to
yes.
pass this one and then.
Yeah.
And
see
then we
again
can
about
come
the other.
back and.
Language, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, so.
Sorry about that.
we're-
It's okay.
No, you're fine, you're fine. We'll have, so, may I have
So
a
what are we-
motion? I'm sorry.
So what are we doing? Are we gonna change it now, or are you gonna have to
Okay, so for policy 2110, Mr. Sanchez, all we're doing is removing C because it no longer fits. That was the evaluation. We're moving the evaluation to 1,000. So that, in essence, is deletion. So that's what we read on the first reading. That's what we're reading on the second reading. And that's what we're approving tonight. The other language we'll look at a different time. Is that clear?
Okay, so we're recommends in there?
Yes, we're keeping everything as is
Right now.
except for that
We
one.
can't do that tonight.
Okay.
Okay?
Well, I thought we could. I thought we could annotate the changes, because I think we've done
It's
that
a
on
second
second
reading.
readings before.
We have, and we can, but this is all we're talking about now. We'll look at that other language next time when Mr. Getty and I meet with Mr. Byrd.
Okay, yeah, because I agree with Dr. Pittman on that one. The superintendent should be the one making the decision on assignment, transfer, and all that stuff. She shouldn't have to recommend
Not
anything.
recommend. Okay,
No.
perfect. We'll look at that language. Okay, any other discussion? Okay, may I have a motion to approve policy 2110 as superintendents of schools second reading?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Getty. Mr. Getty made this motion. Second? Ms. Kirk made this. Okay, Mr. Sanchez made the second. We have a first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The ayes have it. The motion is approved for policy 2110, the superintendent of schools second reading. Thank you. Policy 3195, tobacco-free schools, first reading. Ms. Sanchez?
Was it just a first reading?
Yeah, it's just the first reading.
Oh, it is. Is there any discussion, policy 3195, tobacco-free schools?
One question, guys. Are we still running this through Mr. Ortiz, or are we using the NMSBA stuff?
Mr. Ortiz, we haven't started in MSBA.
Okay, so Mr. Ortiz is reviewing these?
For right now, but this policy is presented through the NMSBA, I believe, our two gentlemen. Yes,
Yeah.
they're still here. Isn't this presented through NMSBA?
No, it's actually more comprehensive than the NMSBA.
Yeah.
So the NMSBA policy, obviously everything in that would be met in this.
Would you please step forward?
Oh, sure.
Thank you, and use the microphone. Mr. Sanchez, can you hear?
I think when they hit the mic, I can hear pretty good.
Okay,
Sure.
thank you.
Yes,
Sorry,
just-
I'm being high maintenance tonight.
No, you're fine.
Your name?
Just-
Your name?
Sorry. Hi, my name is Nikki Besser. I'm the campaign program manager. I work with the youth. So our standard is a higher standard that is approved by the Department of Health and has been reviewed by outside lawyers outside of the NMSBA. So it's a more stringent policy, a more comprehensive policy than the NMSBA.
And I asked that one question when we were in policy review, and she did say that, and I do recall you stating that. And my suggestion was present that to NMSBA as our standard. So that's in process, I'm assuming?
Sure. We've definitely been in conversation with PED, but right now they're not willing to update their policy to be as stringent, but so this would be a policy reviewed by the lawyers, approved by the Department of Health. And the legal references we can provide at the bottom of the policy that we worked with Mr. Bird on as he was working on the policy. So we can provide those legal references for your lawyer to review as well to expedite the process.
Is that clear?
So what I got is NMSBA isn't doing it yet?
Not yet.
Okay. Okay, so, yeah, just as long, guys, as we've got somebody looking at it at that level, whether it's Mr. Ortiz until we get there, I feel a little bit better making sure that, we're still within the sideboards of policy.
It's first reading.
And I would just like to add that if for some reason there's an issue with the legal and you need more support from the campaign to make sure you're comfortable with the legality of the policy, please reach out to us. We're happy to support in any way. Very excited and hoping to stay on track with the next vote. The next vote, you're sort of in competition with Santa Fe. So if it continues in this path, you'll be the first comprehensive district recognized by the Department of Health, but they're gonna vote on it in January. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you. Madam President, members of the board, we will run it by legal counsel. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to number 14, policy 4380, student meal application prices and charges. Second reading.
It's the second reading.
Ms. Sanchez?
Madam President, members of the board, I recommend approval of board policy 4380, student meal applications, prices and charges.
Board members, any discussion? Having heard none, I will entertain a motion for policy 4380, student meal.
So moved.
Mr. Getty made the motion.
Second.
And Mr. Sanchez made the second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries to approve policy 4380, student meal application, prices and charges. Item number 15, 5139, physical restraint and seclusion, first reading. Is there any discussion of policy 5139, physical restraint and seclusion?
No.
Board members, everyone have a chance to look at the policy? I'm
Say that
sorry.
again.
Sir?
So I see a lot of strikeouts to what was there before, and maybe if you can just give us the 10,000-foot view on what's changed.
Madam President, members of the board, I'll have Ms. Lawson talk to you about the strikeouts and the changes.
Perfect.
Madam President, members of the board, essentially House Bill 75 was passed in May of this year and enacted in June of 2017, and so what we have done is updated in the language to reflect the changes in House Bill 72 directly from the state language. And so the essential differences are, from what we had previously had in place, is to include the word seclusion in the title, which wasn't included previously, and the reintegration on the very bottom with regard to, in your copy, under letter E, it says policies regarding restraint and seclusion shall consider the district support strategies for school personnel to reintegrate the student who has been restrained, whereas that wasn't addressed in the previous policies from the state or district. And the rest of the language is directly from the HB 75 letter that was given out from PED in the summer.
So did you hear that, Mr. Sanchez? It's directly from House Bill 75.
Okay, and then one question I did have, guys, is, the good thing I see here is that, we're going to be able to, I guess you could say, stop the action from happening, where I think we might have some concerns is where we talk about imminent danger. Let me get to that. Where did I read that?
That's number one.
If the student's behavior presents an imminent danger or serious physical harm to a student or others, I don't know if maybe we should just take out imminent danger, maybe if it's just danger in a whole, because I don't know if that's going to be perceived as I can't stop him because he's really not going to hurt or seriously hurt somebody, or he or she's going to do that. I think it would be good just if anybody's going to cause any type of physical harm to others, that we're able to restrain and stop that activity. I don't think we need to get into imminent danger or serious physical harm because that's, we're crossing the line there. I think we need to stop it before it gets to that. Is that an option that we have?
Mr. Sanchez, I think what they mean in special ed terms about imminent danger might be if a kid is having a meltdown, and Ms. Lawson is wanting to speak to that, but I think the wording is okay.
Also, it comes from the bill itself, so it's in the bill language. So I think it's set, the bill is set, and would behoove us to change or even look at that. Am I correct, Ms. Lawson?
Yeah. Madam President, Ms. Superintendent, members of the board, and Mr. Sanchez, nothing in this policy precludes, should something happen, that we need to, for critical safety, ever have to intervene. Nothing prevents us from doing that. This just outlines for us with regard to have a legal defensible stance with regard to anything that we do, and it requires us reporting for parent within 24 hours. And again, the main differences are the inclusion of the word seclusion in the title of it, and also the process for reintegration of the student back to either class or to regular setting. And just for everyone's knowledge, this does not apply only to special ed. This is an entire district policy for any child.
Okay, thank you.
The only thing that I saw, guys, it was just like, oh, he's not causing serious physical harm, so I'm not going to stop him. He's just, punching somebody. So that's where it was, as a teacher, you would think, when do I act? Is it serious enough or not? Versus they're doing something wrong, they're hurting somebody, I can act on that. But if you're saying that they can already do that, I feel a lot better.
Good. Where is the definition of seclusion? Is there one?
I believe it's included in the definition portion.
Down at the bottom.
On the bottom part.
Of the policy number 5.
Yep.
All the way last page.
There's first response, mechanical restraint.
It's on the very last page, number 5, for the purposes of this policy.
I understand. Thank you.
Okay. Great. Moving on, number 16, REA collective bargaining agreement. Ms. Sanchez.
It's with great pleasure, after 3 long years, that I'm excited and ecstatic to make a recommendation of approval of the REA collective bargaining agreement.
Ditto. Is there any discussion, board members?
Did anybody bring a bottle of champagne?
No, we're on school property. We'll delete that comment.
He's not on school property.
Okay, any discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Getty made the motion, and Mr. Sanchez second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. The motion carries to approve the REA collective bargaining agreement. Yay. Yes, we're excited. Okay, moving on to number 17, RISD REA MOU for school year 18 retention incentive. Ms. Sanchez.
Madam President, members of the board, I recommend approval of the RISD REA MOU for fiscal year 2018 retention incentive bonus. Let me read that right. I recommend approval of the RISD REA MOU fiscal year 18 retention incentive.
Oh, I said fiscal year, fiscal year. Got it. Just a little bit more, just some jargon. I guess, I found out that education is not the only entity that has numerous acronyms. As we found out, the budget committee, right, Mr. Sanchez, has numerous acronyms, and you have to learn the language, and I guess you learn it once you live it. So, and Mr. Cole, it's difficult for you. I guess you have all these separated and compartmentalized in your brain, but for me it was like, you have to learn them, right? You have to sift through them. Okay, is there any discussion? May I have a motion to approve the RISD REA MOU fiscal year 18 retention incentive?
So moved.
Mr. Getty made the motion.
Second.
And Dr. Pittman second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries to approve the RISD REA MOU fiscal year 18 retention incentive. Moving on to number 18, RISD CWA MOU fiscal year 18 retention incentive.
Madam President, members of the board, I recommend approval of the RISD CWA MOU for fiscal year 2018 retention incentive.
I want to backtrack just a second. I think we already approved number 17 earlier. We just double approved it.
No, we approved number 19.
19.
Oh, 19. We haven't, I'm sorry.
You're doing great.
They all tie together.
Right along. Strike that last comment. Okay, is there any discussion? Having heard none, may I have a motion to approve RISD CWA MOU fiscal year 18 retention incentive?
So moved.
Mr. Getty made the motion. Mr. Sanchez second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. We have a motion, and it's carried to approve the RISD CWA MOU fiscal year 18 retention incentive. We'll skip number 19 because we moved it before number 2. So we're on to approval of the Superintendent's Advisory Search Committee, number 20. Ms. Sanchez.
Madam President, members of the board, I recommend approval of the Superintendent's Advisory Search Committee.
Board members, is there any discussion?
I've got some, Mona, based on this, but I think I'll get to the other board members also.
Well, yeah.
So, Mona, I want to apologize to you for not following up on that, on the last conversation that we had, an email that we had regarding this, but I think it'd be good for the board to hear. So, guys, right now we're working on that search committee, and we presented the names a while back, and please understand that that I do get it that this is going to be hard. It's not going to be an easy button. It's going to be a double-edged sword no matter what we do. But the one concern that I did have was some of the individuals on the committee and possible conflict of I won't say conflict of interest, but maybe just a conflict, and that would be individuals that have been hired and or promoted by Susan Sanchez. And this has, please let me be clear that this is not an attack on any individual that Susan has hired, because she's hired some great individuals that I truly respect and I love working with. But the one thing that kind of came to mind, guys, is that, you know, if I was ever hired or promoted by an individual, you know, I would feel some type of loyalty towards that individual. And that's where I think, you know, maybe some of those individuals on the committee would maybe feel that way towards maybe Susan Sanchez. And that's where I don't know if there's any easy answer for it, but, you know, when I was looking for a committee, it was going to be somebody that, you know, has no ties to anybody, you know, has nothing to do with interim superintendent, whether promoted or hired by that individual. So we had a good committee that was that had no ties to anybody. We didn't have any conflict. But I know it's going to be hard and it's going to be difficult. But you know, in these situations, too, even talking with Dr. Rendon about that, that was one concern that I had when she was asking these questions a while back on building the committee. Was, you know, that, you know, we've had a major changeover, and I get that. You know, a huge changeover, and Mrs. Sanchez had a major part in hiring individuals, so it was going to be hard there. But I just said, my concern is that people that she's brought on, having that loyalty, we might have some conflict. And, you know, where I don't want to come back is to where, you know, when committee members come in, to where I don't want to hear the report that it was maybe set up because, you know, these individuals were hired by Susan, and that individual had the upper hand. So This is no attack on anybody, Mrs. Sanchez, or anybody in the room that's been hired. I respect everybody here, but it's just trying to get that clean slate of nobody that has any ties. So when those individuals come in, it's a fair deal, and we don't have any loyalty issues.
Well,
Absolutely.
and
Mr.
they are
Sanchez.
they are just an advisory.
They're just advisory. We had to start with the list somewhere, and so the list was provided, and it was blindly put together. So that's why I sent the list prior to, and that's why we're having this discussion tonight. If you have names that you would like to offer up so we can add them to the list or discuss those, I'll be happy to write them down.
No, and I don't want to offer any names because, you know, I don't want the conflict with the board or somebody that a board member knows. You know,
You understand we have to do this in open meeting, correct?
Yes, yeah, we do.
Okay.
Do
you know, it's
when you said that? If you know when you said it, we can find it.
At least 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
At least.
Well, can I get a hard copy of that list?
Absolutely.
So I don't know any answer, guys, but what I would probably say is that, you know, individuals that were selected on that committee, you know, if it was hired or promoted by our interim, you know, that we probably should look at maybe selecting somebody else so we don't have that potential conflict. I just, you know, I foresee it as a red flag later on.
Well, I disagree because I like what Mr. Getty said. It's just an advisory committee. We have the ultimate and the last decision. We have to have an advisory committee, and I've never sat on a committee to hire the superintendent where admin wasn't involved. So if you're looking at that, I'm going
no, I think we need admin involved. I think we need admin involved, but I just don't know if we can look at admin that hasn't had any ties to being hired or promoted by our interim superintendent.
Well,
you know,
considering the circumstances, it's going to be very difficult to find that.
I think Ruben, I mean, I hear what you're saying, but at the same time, I think if we started picking a list and said, oh, this person has ties to this person, we would have an advisory committee of 0. And so in the end, we have to have admin as per the superintendent search company. I can't remember what they called, but anyway, as per them, we had to have these committees, and it was their suggestion that we had admin, that we had school admin, and we had teachers. So I think it covered the list, and then our community members. And so to me, I want to, if we wait on this, if we go back and redo the list, then we're waiting another month to get started on the process.
But we have to do it in open meeting.
Yeah, I understand. I'm just saying, what will happen is we'll come off of this, we'll create another list, we'll come back a month from now, and it'll be, let's go through this again. So, to me, on the admin side, I don't see how you'd be able to change it up. And, I mean, this is just an advisory group. We were supposed to meet with them this week, but I don't know that we're going to get to do that. But the superintendent search group is going to meet with them and share with them their roles and responsibilities. Are very, very, so I think you're going to see that their role is very small, but at the same time very important for us to hear their thoughts.
Right, and that's just something, guys, that came to mind, and, you know, just always looking on the other side of the fence to say, you know, what if, and, you know, I just know that that's going to come up.
And that's why I sent a list out many weeks ago for this discussion, because if there are issues, then it's not set in stone. We're able to go in there and manipulate the list, and that's why I sent it. But I haven't heard anything. Everything I've heard back was, it's a go, it's a go, it's a go.
Right, well, besides my email, you know, that was the one I talked about.
And then I sent it back and said, what are your recommendations? I got nothing back from you, so.
Right, and that's where I wanted to talk with the board on that one. You know, I felt that at that level, that's where I needed to talk to the board, and so everybody understands my concern. So it wasn't just a back and forth between, but anyway, we can keep that in our back pocket, but just know that it's out there.
I think they actually did try to do it, elementary, middle, and high. But I don't know, ask your question.
Okay, So if I'm reading this right, all of the elementary schools are supposed to have somebody represented, right?
Yeah, it looks like all of them have somebody
Okay, but
represented.
I don't see Washington Avenue on here. It's an elementary school.
Wasn't Amanda Arnold on it?
Well, I'm talking, she's considered an administrator, correct?
Right.
But they're
every
representing,
school
every
was
school has a
represented.
representative.
Yes.
Not that every school's teacher, but there might be a principal, there might be a teacher. So every elementary school is
So
represented.
see, like Missouri Avenue, Kirk is the administrator, but he's not selected, but this teacher is.
Okay.
So that
I don't
every
have a
school
problem.
has a
Are
representative.
you sure?
I have a question, and I have not seen the community member list.
No, nobody, we don't have that. Mr. Sanchez, have you sent your community members in?
Negative, I have not.
Okay.
I thought that's a discussion between the board and to see who it is. Because then again, if I send community members in, that would be, something portrayed that this is, somebody that Ruben likes and that agrees with Ruben's ideas. And, I don't want to be in that predicament either.
Well, she asked for 2 community members from each of us.
Yes.
And you sent yours, Mr. Edwards? Dr. Pittman, I've sent mine, but I don't want that list. I definitely do not want that list. They're welcome to show up and be portrayed, but I don't think that's...
In other words, they have the list.
They have the list.
Because we sent it directly to them, is that correct?
I just have a question. This is fine. I'm just confused. As you and I both have talked about on the internet, we're confused about that. Because I did correspond with you and Dr. Rendon about this. So we recommended those to her, but she took those recommendations, and that's the list if the people agreed to do it. Is that what you're telling me?
Well,
Like
I think when
you sent
asked
2
me,
in?
yeah, I said confirm with them and provide
And we
their
did.
contact information. Don't just send random names
Absolutely.
without confirming, because then we're gonna be back to square one.
Right.
So if you sent those names with the confirmation, then, yeah, I don't have your names, I don't have community names.
So that's what, those names are fairly anonymous then.
They are, as far as I.
So we're approving only the teacher and administrators?
Only.
Oh, okay.
Right, the community members are kind of an at-large kind of deal.
And
They
I
really
think
are.
I shared mine 2 with you, and I shared
I
mine
don't think-
2.
No, you didn't share your 2 with me.
Who did I share mine 2 with? Yeah, I did. I shared them with you. We
You
were
did?
talking about, yeah, you said what
Well,
you
I've
were-
already forgotten.
How would you like to go about this? And I said, this is how I went about it, because you asked the question.
Oh, that's
Are they
right.
from my district?
It was about the district thing. Yeah.
And I said, well, this is how I went about it, and I shared my 2, but, well.
It is what it is.
It's
Okay, so any other discussion, any other questions? Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the superintendent advisory search.
So moved.
Mr. Getty made the motion. May I have a second?
Madam President, members of the board, do you need to redo your language? The committee, on your basic language that you already applied, did talk about the search committee having committee members in there. So I think you might want to address the
Recommend approval
recommendations.
of the superintendent advisory search committee. It's fine.
Okay, I'm on the wrong
That's what they
place.
call them, as an
Yeah.
advisory search.
Right, but in the language that you approved on your action plan for your consultant, it did say teachers, administrators, and community members. And if we're not approving community members on
Yeah.
here, you might want to restate your
Okay,
recommendation.
so the recommendation would be to remove the community members, so it's just the advisory search committee of we're just approving the superintendent's advisory search committee, teachers and administrators.
Correct.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Getty. Thank you, Ms. Sanchez. May I have a second?
Second.
Dr. Pittman made a second. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same. I'm sorry? Opposed, same sign? The ayes have it. The motion carries to approve the superintendent advisory search committee. We'll now have the consent agenda. Consent agenda, item 6, approval of the consent agenda.
Madam President, members of the board, I approve the consent agenda.
Ms. Sanchez made a motion to, or suggested approval of the consent agenda. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Getty made the motion to approve. May I have a second?
That's only the agenda, not items on the agenda. Okay. The agenda, I second.
Okay, and Dr. Pittman. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. The consent agenda is approved. Reports. Moving on. Then I have reports. Ms. Sanchez.
Thank you.
Hold it.
I'm sorry.
It was, let me look at my agenda here. We approved the consent agenda. I asked if we were going to look at each item. I understood we were. I would like to go through these items on the consent agenda.
Okay, let's go back up. Back up. We will rescind that approval and we'll have discussion. I guess that's legal. Yes, ma'am. Which one?
I would like to look at the October bills.
October bill.
It's page 131 in my book, and I don't know what page it is on anything else. I have a question. I noticed something.
Page
You all
131.
know, I'm a big football fan.
Okay.
So I was just curious about some things.
Okay.
Why someone would use operational funds to order a varsity helmet, a kit, and pads, one set. Now, right above it, we have the same company, Rydell, whom I'm sure all of you are familiar with, that it refurbished some equipment for us, which I would expect is the normal practice. And I see did Mr. Hudson leave?
Yeah, he left.
However, the thing that bothered me first was that there was only one. And why was that? Did something get broken? The second thing that bothered me is because Mr. Cole was so kind to put all those operational numbers, I could read across and figure out exactly what that item was and where it originated. And I noticed it was out of instructional money, not athletic funds. So I wondered why we were buying one set that was not out of athletic funds.
May I approach?
You may.
Do you need to see here?
So what page was that on, guys?
It's on 131. It's Rydell. They're in alphabetical order. You're right here. I would like you to know.
That's an accessory kit.
I would like you to know what that is. I just looked it up on the internet, and I found out Virginia Tech rates that the safest equipment available. I found out that the University of Arkansas Razorbacks use it. And when I was just looking at some tapes of the University of Alabama, Roll Tide, I noticed that some of our players use it and some another, depending on which position they play. So I am very curious how this happened. Now, I have more information about that if you need me to tell it in public.
Sure. Can we start with the first question, Madam President, members of the board? So we can start with the first question. We'll go item by item so we can talk about each of the questions that we're being addressed with.
Board President Kirk, Superintendent Sanchez, members of the board.
Just 1 second. We lost
Just a
Ruben.
moment.
We lost
Sure.
Ruben.
Sorry, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Okay. So to address the first piece, I believe, of the question, so those came out of operational dollars, Fund 11,000 series. Function Series 1000. Function Series 1000 is direct instruction, and so this not being a instructional program necessarily, but there is instruction within the program.
Keep going.
Okay. So I would challenge you to find me another function that would be more appropriate for that particular expenditure.
Well,
And so,
Mr. Cole.
yes, ma'am.
It would take me a while to find, and it would probably go in the summer where I could find where you bought other equipment and look at the numbers and compare them. But they did not go through the athletic numbers. I know that.
Okay. Well, again, just to speak to the account number itself, the Function Series 1000 would be appropriate for the expenditure. We use an internal code. I believe it's Function 1009 for our athletics. I think you saw that on the budget matrix, but that wouldn't necessarily show up in the bills because it's an internal code that we use, meaning PED doesn't use that code, other districts don't use that code. We use it to identify specifically athletics.
Well, that's really interesting because in this other one, the shoulder pads, you used a code in there that is for vehicles and equipment. Now, I just don't understand how, I realize that is football equipment, but what does, it seems that would be parts for vehicles, equipment for vehicles, not of equipment for football players. Now, so my first question was, why was one helmet and one set of pads and one accessories kit to the tune of about $1,000? Why didn't it come out of purchase in the first place? Why did we have to buy one in, I think it was ordered in August, and it was paid in October?
And to answer that question, looking at it from a financial standpoint, meaning I go through all of these bills every time we generate them, and I look to see if they were appropriate or not appropriate, if something was purchased illegally, all of those types of things. When I'm scrolling down through there, I'm not necessarily looking for why did operational pay for a helmet. I'm thinking in terms of, is operational an appropriate funding source to pay for a helmet? And it could be.
It could be.
It
Okay.
is. I mean, it could be. You could also use various other accounts. But for example, if somebody tried to pay for a helmet using Title I dollars, that would have been a problem, and I would have resolved it right then and there.
So are you telling me that that was not caught, that this did not go through the athletic numbers? Is that what you're telling me, that nobody saw that?
Well, what I'm telling you is it appears to me that the operational fund was used to generate a purchase order for that helmet. So typically, the athletics department has both operational funds and activity funds. Those activity funds are generated through gate receipts. So typically you would either see an activity gate receipt fund or an operational fund from athletics. But to answer your question as to whether it went through athletics specifically for approval, I don't believe it did, looking at the account number.
Thank you. I appreciate your honesty. Now, so that makes me have some other questions. Are all football players in the RISD district issued the same helmets, the same pads? I would expect that this one, and I do know that another employee of our district purchased those same equipment for his son. And I understand that. My grandkids don't play football because it's too dangerous. If I was a parent, I'd want the very best equipment for my son. The kind with the stuff in the, like this helmet, with it, the technology in there to prevent injury. I think it's really important. And as a parent and a grandmother, I really understand that I would want the best. So a parent who is a member of our staff purchased it for his child. Now, you know, my son buys his child saxophone. So I don't know if that's against the rules or not, but it came out of the employee's money. Then other people, parents, began to hear about it. And other people came and said, I want my child to have a good helmet that's as safe as it can be. You know what? I'd be the first parent in that line. I think it's a good thing that they did that.
Excuse me, Dr. Pittman. Madam President, members of the board, I would love to get the information needed so that my team could go back and read and look at these.
And research that
and research the information that's being presented.
Because we do not have that
in front of us to address and to ensure that we have accurate information that's being discussed this evening.
Okay. So my recommendation then is, Dr. Pittman, could you apply, please supply Mr. Chad Cole and Ms. Rubens, I'm looking at Ruben, and Ms. Susan Sanchez with the information, let them research that information so they can provide you with the answers you're requesting.
Okay, I'm also requesting, we don't have November bills. Mr. Cole, I would also like to have the POs from November to see if indeed there was some additional equipment bought to satisfy some of these other people and entities. As I've been reported by several people, community people, district people, people are not happy. Now, here's the big problem that I have. I believe our equipment meets or exceeds standards. But what if a kid gets hurt and I'm the mom or I'm the dad and I didn't know that some members on that same team had better equipment? That would really upset me. Now, I know you don't want to talk about it here, but I believe you do know what I'm talking about. And I am willing, I'm very willing to discuss it with you at any time.
Okay. Please supply that information to our admin team, and they will verify the information and have a report back to you.
Well, I think they have the information. All they have to do is read back through their books and look at the purchase order.
Perfect. And they may be calling you for more information since you seem to have the information they need. Okay, sure. So
let me see if that's all I want to say.
Okay.
Wait just a minute.
Guys, one thing I could probably add to this, and I'm looking through the things here, is wherever this came from, the question I would ask is, are we conforming with our ISD policy when it comes to purchasing of equipment, football equipment, basketball, whatever it might be? Are we following the correct procedures in initiating that? So whoever initiated it, are we following policy? And from what I understand, that has to go through athletics. So don't quote me on that one, but we need to make sure it's compliant with that also. So that would probably be another good point
okay,
to
that
see.
will be verified too, that we're following district policy or school board policy. Okay, so Dr. Pittman, do you have any other discussion?
No, thank you, thank you.
Okay, so we had a motion by Mr. Getty and a second by Dr. Pittman.
No, I did not. Did I second that?
You did.
That was a consent thing. I asked you if we were voting on the agenda or the items in the agenda.
I apologize.
That's what I seconded, that we were voting on the agenda,
I
but
didn't
we never
understand that
did take the items one by one.
Okay, so no,
We normally do.
consent agenda is approved in its entirety. So, we have a motion by Mr. Getty, and I will second the motion. So, now, let's approve the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Opposed?
Motion carries. The ayes have it for the consent agenda. Thank you. Now, moving on to committee reports. Ms. Sanchez.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I want to make a request if possible. We have a school board meeting scheduled on January 9th. We have a professional development day in Albuquerque during that time, and I would like to see if it would be possible to move our January 9th meeting to the January 16th.
Let me look. Now, you're saying what month?
So January's board meeting is scheduled on Tuesday the 9th, to move it to Tuesday the 16th.
Oh, from the 9th to the 16th.
The following Tuesday.
I don't see any reason in my schedule it won't work. Thank you.
Okay. At this point, I do have, I'm chair of the zoning commission, and we have our zoning commission on the third Tuesday, but I'm not sure if we'll have any hearings at that time, so I'm going to go ahead and confirm myself that I'm good with the 16th. Mr.
I'm good.
Edwards. Mr. Edwards, good. Mr. Sanchez, can you, in January, can you move to the 16th rather than the 9th?
16th.
We're
Hold on,
still,
no.
okay, we're still on
So the
winter
15th
break on the
King Day,
9th.
that,
I'm sorry?
the 15th is Martin Luther King Day. Are we off of school for that one too?
Yes,
Yes.
we're off on the 15th, so the 16th.
Okay, so the 16th is when you wanted that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think I can make that happen.
Okay,
Just in case you're not here.
yeah.
I can also make it.
Good.
Great.
So it's unanimous. We'll
Okay.
move our school board meeting to, we're changing the January school board meeting to the 16th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, for making that accommodation.
Okay.
I want to bring the board up to date. We had some professional development for all our mentors that are working with Mr. Tackett, with all our principals across the district. We had additional training and support to continue to be consistent and provide that professional development as we work with their 90-day plans, and it was a very great day. We went out to Military Heights, and we want to thank Principal Shaner over there, and also Principal Luck at Goddard. We finished up with the team for providing some feedback and coaching so that we can ensure that we're providing the best professional development available to all our principals across the district. In addition to that, we just finished last week with some HR support on making sure that our stakeholders are getting the best quality service out of the Human Resources Department. How could we be more effective and efficient in meeting all our needs of our teachers, staff, employees? And so we will be working on some next steps and bringing some recommendations and some changes to the department as well. And it was very well received as well. We were going to have a bullying update, but we are still gathering the rest of the information. We just concluded the bullying survey with all the schools on November 3rd, and so in December we will be bringing the results from that and talk about the initiatives that we're working with at the elementary and secondary level as well. Awesome. So we'll be bringing that to December. And with that, I conclude my reports.
Thank you. Business and Finance.
Yes, Madam Board President, Superintendent Sanchez, members of the board, the only bids or RFPs that there are to discuss tonight have been action items on the agenda tonight, and you've passed both of those, so thank you for that. With regard to REA and CWA retention incentive, I think we've trumpeted that one pretty good, but I'd certainly entertain any questions that you might have about either of those.
Having heard none?
Madam Board President.
Yes, sir.
Personal privilege.
Okay.
President of the board, board members, superintendent, faculty, and administrators. On behalf of REA, we just want to thank you, and this has been a long meeting. I'll keep it brief.
It's short so far compared to what we usually do.
I just want to thank you all so much. You know, this was a long process. It was, other people were involved. I don't think we need to rehash all those things. But I just want you to know it has been a pleasure working with your bargaining team, working with the superintendent, working with you all as board members. Your commitment, your direction and goals in bargaining led us to where we are now. When we started this process 3.5 years ago, It was difficult, it was tedious, and it was not for the best interest of the faculty as well as the students. But we've gotten to this point because of you all, and we appreciate that, and the superintendent, the attorneys that you all have now hired to negotiate that were phenomenal to work with. There's a trust that is there, and then you're all's reaching out and doing the $500 retention with us has been wonderful. Your HR department was at the recruitment at Eastern, as well as many other districts, for only 10 teachers that were available for the December hiring out of Eastern. So I think that bonus and that retention is important. But again, just want to thank all of you and thank members of the district, the board, and the bargaining team that represented the district. We appreciated working in harmony with you all, so thanks so much.
Thank you, Mr. Bensley.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. And moving on, Human Resources. Mr. Bird.
Madam President Kirk, Superintendent Sanchez, members of the board, you have in front of you the personnel report on a monthly for November of the different hires and resignations. You'll also have the position listing that you continue to get in every month. I'll be open to any questions at this time.
Is it getting smaller? It looks smaller. Or is it just that you've made it bigger so it looks like that?
I try.
Is it just a visual thing?
Well, that'll kind of lead into the recruitment here that we talk about. If there's no questions, I'd like to talk about the recruitment that we've been doing. First of all, I'd like to thank Maria Trujillo, Abby Smith, Ralph Mata, Kirk DeSoto, Ramon Miramontes, some of our administrators that have gone to these job fairs here for us in the fall, and they've done a phenomenal job. Now, understand these are given out letters of intent, so at any time the person can back out, but these will be all for January hires that we're keeping our fingers crossed and hoping. On our one to Northern Colorado in Greeley, we were able to give out 2. When Mr. Trujillo and Mr. Mata went to Texas State at San Marcos, they gave out 8 letters of intent. And then when Mr. DeSoto and Mr. Trujillo went to Texas A&M, they did a 2-day trip to Kingsville and then to Corpus Christi. They signed 6 letters of intent. At Eastern last week, they were able to give 1. So we got a 10% out of that one. And then today they were at Texas Tech and were able to give 2 letters of intent for a total of 19. So we're hoping, keeping again our fingers crossed, that in January that we can get at least half of those to commit to come work for us.
That's great. So it's not from lack of effort. No.
No.
You're definitely out there
And
beating the
and
bushes.
just so you know, for the remainder of this fall semester, we have one other job fair this Friday at UTEP.
Wow.
So.
Okay.
Do you know if Texas has more teachers than they need? Is that why we're getting the Texas teachers?
You know, well, I know when we did the proximity learning with, it's based out of Austin. The gentleman who we were working with said that right now they're down like 1,000 or 2,000 teachers in the public schools. So honestly, I'll be honest with you, I think it was a great sales pitch put on by Mr. Trujillo and our other representatives, that they really went and they sold Roswell and, what the community and the school district is about.
Well, that's wonderful. That's good. Y'all keep it up.
Thank you. Assessment and testing. Mr. Bueller?
Superintendent Sanchez, Madam President, members of the board, if you don't mind, before I get into this one, since we're adopted with flexibility, can we talk about the district report card first?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Madam President, members of the board, we did just receive our district report card, and at this time, we will have Mr. Bueller go over the district report card. And under that statute, it is a report card that should be published every year. And So that will be done in the next week or so to get that published, and it needs to be publicized in English and Spanish, and so you'll be seeing that publicized for all our community members that can do it. The last copy I have in the district that was published, to my knowledge, was in 2011-12, so we will be putting this report card together in the way that we received it, so that all our constituents out there will have a copy of this report card.
Thank you.
And this was just unembargoed on Thursday, so of last week. So we're it's fresh off the presses. You've got that on your book, and one of the things that we had looked at when we looked at the very front is the schools in priority status, strategic status, and reward status, because every year that seems to remain static. And I finally spoke to someone on up at PED. They're getting to know me because I call on the phone so often. But what they told us was that this was established 3 years ago, and the status remained the same for 3 years. So on page 2 of your report, the schools in priority status is still remains Sunset, even though Sunset's at a B, even though that doesn't seem to jive, right? And in reward status, we've got our 2 comprehensive high schools, and in our strategic status, we've still got Nancy Lopez and University High. But from the PED, they let us know that they were going to redo those status for 2018-19. So that makes this a real critical year. And this is 18-19 also is going to be when access scores get counted in. So it's going to be a real critical year for us to address our performance and our achievement of our students. So whatever we end up with at the end of this year is going to stay with us for the next few years, and next 3 years. And our district remains a C. We're solidly a C, and we had been averaging out our school reports, our school grades, and looking at that as a basis for establishing where we're at. And it falls solidly within a C, but in speaking to the folks from PED, it's not figured that way. They weight the number of students you have, so the comprehensive high schools are going to have a much higher weight because of the number of students they have. Now, it doesn't change us. We're still within a C there, and as if this has to be published, this is our very first move, is to publish it for you all and bring it to the school board, and then we're going to bring it put it on the web. But we also have to publish it in a more public fashion so that everyone can see it in Spanish and English, and we get it out to everybody. And it is a very comprehensive report, goes through all of our scores, and it compares us to the state. I think you see we compare very, very favorably. And they do give us some ideas of where we might be able to get the most impact on our improvement. And that, I'm going to segue into this next one. But before I start my little PowerPoint, is there anything in particular out of this? Because I know it was sent to you, but is there anything in particular you wanted to take a look at or ask about?
Mr. Sanchez, did you hear? Do you have any questions about the report?
No. What I'll probably do is if I can review it when I get back. But yeah, we're good.
Mr. Bewley, is this the report that we were given in our board book with all the color and stuff, the complete report, is that what the PED sent you?
Yes, the PED has released that, and they have it both in Spanish and English, and that was just let out.
Okay. I knew I hadn't seen it online, so thank you. I looked at this a lot.
Yeah, you can find it online now, but it's got a lot of really good information, and it highlights a lot of the achievements within the district that we can look at.
It's more comprehensive than I remember from the past. I don't recall it ever having as much information.
I think most of the times is you'll take a look at it.
Sure.
Mr. Sanchez, here. I think most of the time you'll be looking at the school report card and looking at that, and then this one's the district. And maybe we don't take enough time to go through that, but that is available for everyone. It gives us a really good picture of the whole district overall.
Okay, awesome.
So,
waves to that. We had been looking at, as part of our 90-day plan, we wanted to come up with for our schools an idea of what kind of growth we're looking for. And we don't want to just add on points at random. And so we looked at our schools that we have right now, where our grades came from. This is nothing that you haven't gotten already, but I just wanted to point out, when it's presented this way, we can see that through here, the opportunity to learn, all of our elementary schools got an A on opportunity to learn. And almost all of them got the bonus points, which is not going to be figured the same way. But that wasn't where our schools differed. Because if we're all getting an opportunity to learn as an A and all getting 5 points, bonus points, shouldn't we all be getting an A? So we wanted to take a look at here and see that all of our real growth and our differences between our schools is coming from growth. So that's something that we really want everyone to focus on, is the growth of the students. And by the time we get to the last page, you'll see that when we say growth, it's all students, it really is. And there was our middle schools, again, opportunity to learn, almost all of them were A, bonus points, almost all of them got all their points. Sydney, surprisingly enough, got the smallest number of bonus points, but they did the best on growth. And our high schools, same way. Now, the high schools, we have different measures that we have to look at. Our college and career readiness, and early college and university high, we're working on that. So that's very different in just looking at our scores, but different areas of the different schools that they have to focus on their 90-day plans. Now, this is our scores right now, and we've seen these already. This is our math, reading math, science scores, our proficient and above scores, where we're at, how many students we have. And we wanted to see where we would end up if we looked at a 10% growth. Now, once we get down to a couple of other schools that show tremendous growth, you may be looking at that 10% growth and saying, well, that's not really 10%. I mean, if we take a look at Berenda Elementary, that doesn't look like 10%, but it is, because we're looking at your 10% of your proficient. So if you have 40% proficient, 10% of that is 4%. So we're just trying to come up with a goal for an achievable goal for our schools to be looking at, something that their teachers can keep in mind as they go through the CIAs and their CFAs, all the testing that they do, and we've got a goal in mind for the end of the year. Now for the elementaries, that worked out pretty well, because these are achievable goals, and they're high goals. I mean, if you compare them to the state, these are some pretty high goals for our elementary schools.
So for like, I'm sorry, Mr.
Go ahead, let me go back.
So for like your reading, your math, and your science, you have
Right.
proficient and above. So it would be proficient and advanced, you
Yes.
put those together, then took 10% of that.
Right, so that was proficient and above together, and then we took 10% of that, added in, and we'll see what, we'll establish our goal from there.
Okay.
Now, as we move along, this is our middle schools. This is where we're at right now. This is our proficient and above in the different reading, math, and science. So adding in our 10% goals right there, that's again where we're coming up with our numbers. Now, Sydney, we're not going to take a look at that one. But if you look through here, this is the kind of goals that we're asking our middle schools to come up with. Again, it's an achievable goal, and some of them, though, the amount of growth that we're looking at from them, you'll see that their 90-day plans are a little bit higher than that, because we didn't feel that some of these goals right through here were necessarily as rigorous, and the principals and their planning committees, again, also wanted to set higher goals within some of these areas. But we wanted to give them an idea of what we're looking at when we're talking about a 10% growth. And our high schools, especially when we get down to Algebra 2, as far as the growth that we're looking at, we need that higher in here. And so our schools came up with a higher goal all through there, not just 10%, because
there's a lot of opportunity within there. But if you notice within our reading and our math scores with our comprehensive high schools, this is actually a pretty good goal for us. And it's not unachievable. And again, it's, as you saw from our district report card, we're very competitive across the state. And if you look at our growth from 6th, 7th, and 8th, you will see growth in every school as our scores grow from 6th, 7th, 8th. We're a little bit behind the state in 6th grade, but by the time we get to 8th grade, we're above the state. Same thing in the high schools. The one area that's really stands out though is our Algebra 2, and that's a very low score across the state. So when we look at that, our Algebra 2 scores within here are math. So all across the state, that is a very low area. So that's an opportunity for growth for us. And I really think that our school, our teachers that we've hired, our teachers that we've imported, and our proximity learning to impact on our Algebra 1, we are looking to see that impact in a couple of years by the time they hit Algebra 2. Because we really want them to have that basis and that preparedness by the time they get to Algebra 2. Now, if we're looking at that much growth in there, I wanted to highlight two of our schools, Mesa and Sunset. And the reason we're looking at them is because, if you recall, they jumped, just stand back over here. They jumped 2 letter grades and or 3 letter grades. So they increased quite a bit. And I wanted you to see that it's not just this score here, because this is 2016, this is 2017. So you see the amount of growth is not huge. It's not just adding 10 points to whatever you had in 2016 for them to be able to achieve these huge jumps to a letter grade of B. So I wanted to show this so that we could say, well, this 10% growth doesn't seem really ambitious, but if you'll see that the schools that make these huge jumps, and we're looking at the growth that they have in just the scores, it's not just the proficient, it's growth of all of our students all together. So it's this one, I like this last slide right here because it really kind of illustrates that it's not just the proficient score. It's not just one number, it's every single individual student within there. So it's just something that we wanted to present to our administrators, and that they're using for their 90-day plan, so that they can come up with some goals that they can shoot for. And as we work our way through our CIAs, we'll be able to take a look and see if we're moving towards our goals in a successful way or not. Yes, ma'am.
I noticed, and I had noticed this before, maybe I'm reading it wrong. In reading at Sunset last year, they had 43%.
Right.
Is that the whole school or just a grade level?
This is Park. This is Park, so it would be 3rd, 4th, and 5th.
Okay, so if 43, and then 17, it looks like they went down.
Right, they're at 40. But at the same time, you've got, right?
Yeah, we have fewer students.
Right. So, but again, you're looking at your 3 years of growth within there to see where the students are ending up at. And your 3rd graders, we're looking at our I-Station scores. So we saw the huge growth that Sunset had made, but it's not just the proficient and above scores. It's not just the kids who cross over that finish line. It's everybody. So this is a really good illustration for us to look at and say, well, wait a minute now, I'm not seeing the growth, but the growth is there. And so we cannot rely on just one number and just look at that proficient and above and say, well, this is the whole school, and it really is not.
No, is it just the one test?
Right.
Ruben, you have any questions about what you see on the screen there?
Okay, if you're watching the YouTube, you're seeing it on the screen.
Yeah, I just did, and it's actually working pretty good.
Okay, good. So I shouldn't be blocking you, Mr. Braggs told me I'm not blocking you.
I just snapped when the presentation started hitting. I said, oh yeah, we have YouTube. I forgot about that. So thanks, Mona.
So any other questions on that? Because that was all I had on that one. I wanted to take a look at this one after we looked at our district report card, so we can see, where our goals are coming from, and how we're
You know, when we compare ourselves to the rest of the state, in most places, we come out pretty good.
Yes.
However, you know, I especially elementary, right, and I don't know what happens. It happens all over the state. I don't know if the statistical process is not good or what, but, you know, if we have nine, let's just, give me one up there. I don't have it in front of me. I tried to write something down, but I didn't get it. I'd like to see those 11th grade scores. Because it seems to me that we had one.
Okay. Can you pop it back up for me? Or do I need?
Here, I can find it. I can find it on my board book, I think, if I'm smart enough, and I'm not too smart with this.
We'll put it up here so we can all see, and Mr. Sanchez.
Okay, our 11th graders, current, we have 38% proficient. And the state is 43%. The thing that scares me is if you subtract 38 from 100, you get 62 that are not proficient.
Right.
We got to do better. Every child that goes through this district should have the opportunity to become proficient.
By the time they hit the 11th grade?
They should. How do they get out? Don't we have exit exams?
Yes, we do.
And how do they pass them?
As of yet, the state has not yet held us to that standard. Held any of the state to the standard of if you don't pass, you don't graduate.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that is not yet, yeah, that is not yet come into place.
Thank goodness, because we'd have 90%.
That's very motivational in some places, though.
Right. Yes, ma'am. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thanks.
Okay, so that brings us to number 5, board communication, new and unfinished business, discussion of board communication. Mr. Sanchez, would you like to start us off?
Sure, I will. So thanks, guys. I know I'm super needy when I'm on the phone. It's kind of hard to hear and everything. So thank you for putting up with me, and thank you for everybody that was speaking and having to reiterate what they said. So thank you for that, guys. One, also, Mr. Tackett, I want to thank you for recognizing the veterans in our district. That's very important, especially veterans that we still have serving our communities now and that are still in the district. So to all of you that have served and are still serving in this district, thank you. I appreciate your service. And also give a shout out to Mr. Edwards, too, for serving his country and still serving on the board. So thank you for that. So one thing I wanted to hit on, too, guys, is a few weeks ago, you know, we got the call, and it seems that it's been the norm with threats to students, threats individuals at our schools, or just threats to schools in a whole. And thank you, Mrs. Sanchez, for bringing us up to speed on that and keeping us up to date on what's going on. And one thing that I did to trick Ms. Sanchez on that was I think we've got to draw the line somewhere, guys, when it comes to these situations happening in our district. Just the amount of time and resources it took for those threats that happened to our schools the past few weeks. The amount of time it took for Mrs. Sanchez at a third day and what she could have been doing, her administration, teachers, everybody associated. So what I asked Mrs. Sanchez to look at, and maybe we can plant the seed here, is I think we need to come up with a policy that's very firm and very clear and concise when it comes to those types of threats to our students in our district, to where there's no gray. And I believe it also needs to be stern. You know, if the guys or individuals are going to go through that length to make that type of threat, they should probably have some very strict consequences with that, to where maybe they'll second guess making that choice in the future. So I'd like to ask for your guys' help on that. We need to make that clear and concise that our ISD has zero tolerance when it comes to these types of threats with our students, period. And if you make those choices, you possibly won't be part of this district anymore. So if I can ask for you guys' help, it'd be greatly appreciated, Mrs. Sanchez, you too. I like to plant that seed with you guys. We can look into that. We can reach out to other districts that have been through this and what did they come up with. So guys, I think you guys kind of heard when I talked earlier regarding policy, and I think what I'm kind of getting from some of the agenda items we acted on tonight is maybe there are some concerns dealing with policy, and what I want to ensure is that, one, us as a board, that we're abiding by our policy. And I know, guys, that sometimes we're not perfect and sometimes we miss some things, but as a board, that's our duty. We enforce policy and we write policy. And, you know, with the Charlie's Angels tonight, you know, I'm a great supporter of those guys, and I believe that they need to go, but I also do believe that we need to back our policy. And, you know, Mrs. Sanchez, if we can, I know that we finished with Charlie's Angels going to contact our athletics department and go that route, but I just want to ensure that we are enforcing policy and that we're not going to end up in a situation in the future because of possibly reading it incorrectly. So if we can hopefully stay down that path, it'd be greatly appreciated. And that's what I think I was maybe getting also from Dr. Pittman regarding some of the questions regarding purchases too. It seems that what I'm gathering from that is that we maybe have some questions with policy. And I think that we need to ensure that everybody within the district understands the policy and is abiding by the policy. And, you know, I think that's very important. And I appreciate you guys listening to me on that. But that's what we do. And I don't want to go down the road to where we're making our rules up or we're doing what we want. We have a policy for a reason. Let's try and enforce that as much as we can. So, again, thank you to everybody. And once again, thank you to all of that. That's all I. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. Mr. Getty.
I really don't have anything, but I do want to say thank you for the district employees for working so hard to get us everything that we had. It's a lot of work. You guys do too much. And so anyway, but yeah, I've been to a lot of the assemblies, and they've been really good. Some really good assemblies, and of course, I'm always at them, and I'm like, man, these teachers do a lot. You know, I watched a little bit of a school where they had, I mean, I didn't even stay at that one, and they were just like, it was crazy what the students and the teachers were doing, and I'm thinking, and then we want that to go up 10%. And so we have a lot of expectations on our teachers, and so I think it's really good that we're rewarding them and everybody else, because obviously if you have a big assembly, who's got to clean that up? You know, we've got people doing that. We've got and I went to turkey dinner with my kids, and I thought, what a disaster for cleaning this up and for the work that it takes. I mean, I was driving, so Nehemiah goes to Washington Avenue, and I avoid Washington Avenue like the plague, because there's 3 elementary schools on Washington Avenue, right? And I was way down south, and I thought, well, I'm going to Washington Avenue. So I go down Washington Avenue, and there's a line going out to the street at all the schools. And I'm thinking, oh, these poor people. So, but at the same time, what a neat opportunity. It was so cool to go eat lunch with my kids. And so I really enjoy that kind of stuff that the district does for us as parents. And the invites we get from all the schools, I know we don't make them all, but I do look at them, and I actually put them on my calendar and go, just let that day be open and I can go to this. So I really do appreciate all that, so that you guys, I just think our school district is really awesome. The more I watch how stuff is done and just how hard our teachers work and how hard our people work, I just think we have a great district. And so I'm really excited about the future. And I'm just it's kind of a neat thing. So that's all I got.
Thank you, Mr. Getty, and you know, I still look at myself as an employee, even though I know I'm not. I still look at as myself as part of our ISD, and you're absolutely 100% right. The amount of work that goes into each of these projects, even Thanksgiving lunch, even though Mr. Graham and his cafeteria workers are the ones responsible for the lunch, there's still a lot of planning, a lot of schedule changing and juggling, and kids to manage, parents to manage, and just the whole management part of it, right, Mr. DeSoto? You know as well as I do, it takes a full team to get that done.
Mr. Bewley actually stepped in for me this year. I was in Corpus Christi, so he volunteered to
Oh
be at
my
Thanksgiving.
gosh.
I got free lunch out of it.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Getty. Dr. Pittman.
Well, I've been to several of the school functions. The one at Washington Avenue to celebrate their 100th anniversary at that site was really amazing. Very good turnout, very positive atmosphere.
Good cake.
I didn't eat it. Was it good?
It was
it good?
It was good cake.
I didn't. I try to, I'm a closet cake eater. I don't want anyone to see it. I really enjoyed the first part of the school year when we were visiting the elementary schools, and I really heard, well, middle schools too, and high schools. I really heard a lot of good things from teachers, and I think they appreciated the board coming. And I was very saddened that we're not going to do that anymore. You know, that was a motion made by the board and passed by the board to start it. And I think it would be good if the board talked about it and decided whether or not we wanted to do it again. But I think the board needs some input on that.
And I like your idea. I too am saddened that we received the information we did, and we just need to look at the format that we're not, we're within our purview.
Well, one of the things that this is what I got out of it. Teachers were free to tell us stuff, but we didn't really have anything that we could do about it. You know, they might tell us a problem, but it was it's not our purview. Yeah. So it made them feel good to vent. Made me feel frustrated that I couldn't fix it. But I don't know how the district can get open lines of communication between the district office and the teachers in the classroom to hear their needs, to hear their concerns.
Well,
that's.
They do. They have the SAC committee, the Superintendent's Advisory Council. They have their their principal. And I know, as a principal, I wanted their input, and that's why I had faculty meetings once a month, and I had my committee meetings. So they reported to their committee, brought their information to me, and then if I couldn't solve it, I took it to administration. So that's really where it needs to start, is at the local level.
I agree with you, and I think the process is the only way to make it work. We can't, teachers, I'm sure they're taught this. I'm not sure I ever taught anybody this, but I'm sure they're supposed to be taught, or their principal needs to help them understand how to get an answer. Sometimes the principal doesn't know the answer, but you got to go the lowest level to the next level to the next level. And for that, I agree with you. Maybe we can reformat those meetings where we can be with those teachers and talk to them, find out what's going on in the school, as we did, and then work some other magic so that we don't hear all the stuff they're frustrated about, because you need something like that, and sometimes it takes longer than that to get it, and then you become frustrated. And I think we probably saw some of that.
And that's where the principals come into play. I understand the difficulty that presents, but it really needs to start at the local level.
The view of the classroom teacher is very narrow. They're focused on those 20, 25, 30 kids. And then the site administrator has a little bit different. They're focused on 400, 600, I don't know how big our schools are. And then they're very concerned about that, and they want every one of their needs met. So I just think we always should foster an openness and a communication where we can congratulate and where we can see about issues that can be resolved. Some issues can't be resolved, but some probably can.
And they do have their superintendent advisory council, so.
Yes, I know. I was looking for those. They used to be online. Are those minutes still online?
Yes, Ms. Holly, you sent out the superintendent's advisory.
Are they online now?
The schools.
Maybe you could send those to the board?
Absolutely.
That would be very helpful.
Okay.
Well,
You're right, I remember getting them as a
yeah,
board member.
because, you know, as a board member, we don't really know everything. And that's very helpful for us to know what is being discussed in those advisory. And then, you know, somebody comes up to me and says, da-da-da-da-da-da, and I say, well, you know, I think y'all discuss that in the advisory council. Talk to your representative. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Edwards.
Well, I'm not gonna be long-winded, and I'm not, you know, y'all did y'all's deal and went to the different schools. In the last couple of weeks, I've paid visits to different schools, Washington Avenue, Brendo Elementary, Brendo Middle School, and I wanted to get a feel for myself. I don't believe in dog and pony shows, and I spoke to a lot of a couple of the principals, a couple of the teachers, and my question was, I want a good feel for the district, because I always hear, you hear always the negative. You pretty much that's all I've heard is the negative, yeah, and it comes from the board as well. And we have people on the board, you know, that might be frustrated. But I also want to look at the good things, you know, and too many times we don't look at the good things that are going on in the district. These people didn't know me they didn't even know I was a school board member until I went up and shook their hand and spoke to them. And, you know, I got a good feel for what's going on. And I do believe that there's a lot of improvement taking place, you know. The teachers have got something that took 20 years to get, they finally got something done. And I think, you know, Ms. Sanchez here had an important role in it. You know, and I think we need to sometimes take a step back and look at ourselves and reflect on what we're here for. And that goes for everybody that's sitting up here. You know, I've made bad decisions. I've made good decisions, but I'm always going to look at the good before I look at the bad. And if there's something bad there, I want to fix the bad or try to at least correct it. You know, I've been thinking long and hard, and you know, I think we've got a good administrative staff here. You know, I'm learning things that I didn't even know. I had no clue. The training that we get as a board member is probably the worst training I've ever seen. You can write that in the newspaper too. And I do want to thank the Roswell Daily Record for coming out. But I think that's some of the worst, this is some of the worst training that I've ever seen. Yes, I went to the state deal and I have missed some meetings, but I don't think that it equips us for what we're actually, the task we're going to undertake. There's a lot to learn, and in 6 months you're not going to get it. You know, I sit here and everybody's talking about these policies, Charlie's Angels. I sit there for I went to every meeting, me and Miss Mona, the two gentlemen to my right, and it was amazing how we kept agreeing to disagree. We would leave a meeting, we had agreed, and then when we came back, it was totally different. I don't work that way. I want something that's going to be cut and dry, and then we fix it. You know, and like when they were asking all these questions, I sat in those meetings. I know what was the gist of those meetings. And, you know, when I hear people saying we want the best for Roswell and our kids, I don't know if we really do. Sometimes I have to question what's inside in a person's heart, because I'm going to tell you right now, I'm the first person. If a kid can get away from Roswell, they need to do it as many times as they can, because they're going to wind up getting stuck here. I live on the east side, and I see a lot of kids, they don't have that opportunity. You look at Charlie's Angels, they're straight A's, they're pretty good students, straight A students, they're on a roll, they work hard. I mean, they work harder than most people in the school district. Not that the people in the school district don't work hard, but I know what those kids go through. I think we got a long road ahead, but I think we're making some progress, a whole lot more progress than what I saw 2 years ago. And that's pretty much the gist of what I've got to say.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. And you know, I have to comment. Mr. Edwards, you are finally becoming more vocal. You're coming out of your shell and actually
I don't have a shell.
Yeah, well, it was difficult to get you to voice your opinion, and I appreciate it immensely. That's when I feel like I learn, is when people challenge. If you don't challenge, it's not a learning situation for me. So I appreciate all your comments and your coming forward. And same thing, Dr. Pittman and Mr. Sanchez and Mr. Gaddy. I think that's how we grow as board members. I want to recognize RHS football team. They made the semifinals, and the game is this Saturday at 1 o'clock. Congratulations, Roswell High football team.
Where is that game?
It's quarterfinals.
Quarterfinals. I'm sorry.
Where is it?
It's at Louisville, 1 o'clock. And you have to pay. Just because you're a board member doesn't mean you get in free. Also, I want to recognize Jessica Sanders. She's a science teacher, and she received Science Teacher of the Year. So congratulations, Jessica. Awesome. Last year, we had a PE teacher named PE Teacher of the Year here in Roswell, and BJ Jones. And I want to recognize that, you know, that's awesome. As we talk about, we have some awesome teachers here. We have 2 teachers that made in their field Teacher of the Year. So congratulations, Jessica. I'm very, very amazed. I appreciate you. Yeah, I attended a lot of nice, great things happening. October 11th, the Maze of Life was absolutely amazing. Our 9th graders are put through this obstacle course of real life events that they're going to be faced with, and it was such an amazing, amazing feat that I just can't thank them enough for doing that for our 9th graders. And that's such a pivotal year. 9th grade is such a pivotal year. Also, I attended the cultural sensitivity at Goddard High School. My one complaint was the acoustics. It was, and maybe it was just me, because the kids upstairs said they heard every single word. I asked my son, he said, I heard every single word. But for me, it was difficult. I was sitting down on the floor. Maybe it was because Harry was talking to me. I don't know, but it was very difficult to hear. Just kidding. I also attended Red Ribbon Week at Sunset Elementary. That was amazing, too. And the walk was horrible. The wind started blowing about 12 noon and quit about 2:30. So that time that we were walking, it was so difficult to hold on to balloons. I felt I was going to be airlifted. But the reason for was amazing. Also, on December 31st, I attended the LESC committee. I'm the member from the New Mexico School Board Association for school grades. Mr. Bewley, if you have any information you would like for me to take with me. Our next meeting will be in January to approach Ms. Mimi. Stewart is the leader of the group, so if you have any information you'd like for me to present at this meeting, I would be more than happy to on school grades, if you have any information for me to share. I went to RHS and GHS Veterans Day and Sunset Veterans Day assemblies, and I tell you what, I didn't come out of any of them dry-eyed. I tell you, they're so moving, and I wish the principals were here for me to tell them. Ruben, Mr. Bolaños, Mr. Luck, amazing, amazing. It's very tearful. I was very moved. So great job, and I thank you all for your service and everything you do for our ISD administrative staff. You're awesome. Thank you, Ms. Sanchez, and thank you, school board members. I appreciate your service, and I will give you a pay raise.
Yes.
That's all I have.
Maybe they'll give us a pay raise.
And that's all I have. Thank you all so much. Anything else? Okay, may I have a motion to end this school board meeting?
So moved.
Mr. Getty made the motion, second.
Second.
Mr. Sanchez, second. Roll call. Ms. Kane?
Mr. Getty?
Here.
Dr. Pittman?
Here.
Mr. Edwards? Mr. Sanchez?
Mr. Sanchez?
Yes.
Yes.
Ms. Clark?
Yes. Okay, time of adjournment is 8:36. This meeting is now